I'm Stephanie Cole and I'm obsessed with Hell's Kitchen. Guys, don't start it or you won't shop.
I'm Monique Hammond and I'm obsessed with human fall flat, or as I like to call it, floppy humans. This is the Modern Adult podcast where we explore the modern adult landscape and ask the dumb questions about adulthood so that you don't have to.
We really have no dignity.
All young men with suits and ties, just sitting in the crowd smoking big cigars. I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one on the lady that will bring it down.
Are you open to finding new opportunities? This week we're chatting about unpaid work and whether it's worth your time or a form of exploitation.
A little of column A, a little of column B.
What?
It sometimes is both.
Oh, yeah.
I like to improv the intros or else it feels too stiff, Steph.
Monique's suddenly very loose.
All right. So a couple of months ago, there was a news article that really annoyed the fuck out of me, if I'm going to be honest. It was a high-up lady at Muffin Break. I believe it was a CEO, but don't actually have the article in front of me. The CEO of Muffin Break was saying that kids these days, they're not willing to do unpaid work, and that back in her day, kids would come in and they'd offer to work a few shifts, and if they were good, they'd get a job. But now people come in, hand over their resume and say, give me a job. And she doesn't think they have the moxie to get a job at Muffin Break. And I would like to say to this lady, fuck you. There are lots of jobs where you do need specific experience to be qualified, to be good at that job, and to be considered. Muffin Break is not one of those places. You hire teenagers to fucking sell shit. It's fine that they don't have experience in that. They're not expected to. They're teenagers. So we wanted to talk today about unpaid work. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think we can all agree that in the Muffin Break case, it's a bad thing. But are there situations where it is a good thing?
Yes and no. I think this is a very complicated conversation to be having, because there's one side of it where people can't actually afford or support themselves or feed their families if they do full-time unpaid work. But then the other side of it is, which is like the harsh truth about some industries, is that you need to do a certain amount of unpaid work to, one, upskill, and two, network. And you just need to be able to understand the context of the industry that you're getting into before you even really deserve to be paid, which is fair enough. I understand in my case, being a filmmaker, there's so much that I don't know and I don't expect to be paid as a professional if I don't have that knowledge.
If you are learning, so if you approach, we'll say, like a film, and you just don't have the skills to actually fill any positions on that film, totally fine for you to do an unpaid job on that film to learn, to upskill. But if you're doing work that the business is going to be completing regardless of whether or not you're there, and you're just kind of being shafted in to do some of that, that's not a good thing.
It's interesting because in the case of the Muffin Break instance, this is the person who was saying all of this. She comes from a world where that's what you had to do to kind of get your foot in the door. And unfortunately for her, the world has progressed from that.
Unfortunately for literally everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think anybody should be doing that kind of work unpaid because it doesn't require any experience. So it is a form of exploitation.
It absolutely is a form of exploitation. And for example, being an engineer, you need a certain level of experience. You need a certain level of shadowing people, having a go at things and getting it wrong to be able to do the job. And that might take the place of work placement or workplace training. But the difference, I think, with that is that if you've got a work placement student who designs a building, they're probably not going to use that design because they're unaccredited. They don't know. I don't know if engineers need accreditation, but, you know, like they don't have the experience to be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
In other industries, such as like arts industries, say I came in for like a filmmaking job and I edited something for them and they use it, that's a bit exploitation-y because they wouldn't have got the product.
And they're making money.
They're making money
off
your work when you're not getting, maybe you get credit for it, but you don't get paid where they would have otherwise paid someone. But on the flip side, you're getting so much experience. You're getting my least favorite word in the world, exposure. You're networking, you're making connections, and that's a great thing. But also there's a downside that maybe you don't know your worth and maybe other people aren't paying you your worth.
What do you think about the conversation around millennials in particular not wanting to do the hard work to get forward? They just come in and they expect the world, because that's essentially what the muffin break story is about.
I don't think that's true. I think now people expect to be paid for work that they do, because you should not be doing unpaid work that directly contributes to someone else's profits. So for the muffin break example, if those people are coming in and they're shadowing a cashier or something, that's fine. I don't think that's the case, but that's fine. But if they're coming in, they're having a go on the till and, you know, they're like selling things to customers, that's not okay. You're directly contributing to the profits of that business without appropriately compensating your employees. And also that's illegal, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
can I give you a scenario?
Yeah.
Yes. So I had someone come to me recently and they were like, hey, so did you do any unpaid work for your current position to kind of get the job initially? And I was like, oh, no, I came in for like a 2-hour kind of mock day just to see if I could do the work. And then after that, I got a phone call saying I got the position. She said to me that she's been doing a week trial unpaid it was 2 weeks actually unpaid just to see if she could do the job. And I was like,
similar job, like marketing?
No. So it was in the filmmaking industry. So she came in and she was just doing all this work for them for free. And apparently that is standard.
If she wasn't doing it for free, would they have hired someone else to do it? Like, for example, was she an editor editing a whole show for free?
I'm not sure of the ins and outs of it, but she was doing actual work that they were using.
That's not acceptable for, like, obviously there's caveats around, you know, if it's a short film and like if there's literally no money and if you're doing it on a creative volunteer basis, like that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an established company that would otherwise need to pay a person to do this work,
mm-hmm.
and if that person wasn't there, this work would not get done but would need to be done, that is exploitation. And
it's not training.
That's not training.
Yeah.
Training is, say, if you are an editor, sitting with someone while they edit and they show you how to edit and maybe you get to have a go, but that's training. Don't necessarily need to be paid for that. Well, like, again, caveats, sometimes you do.
Yeah.
That's training. That anything other than that, like having actual proper guidance on what you're doing is exploitation.
And on the note of exploitation, don't ring up your like arty friends and be like, hey, you like to draw. Can you fucking make my wedding invitations for free? Don't do that. Don't ring me up and be like, hey, you're invited to my party, but can you also take photos at the same time and edit them up and send it to me? And then don't come up to me mid-party when I'm around my friends and be like, hey, could you take some photos for me? Because that is not cool.
Don't. I feel like also there's like, I mean, I'm sure other industries get this too, but there's like a bit of an expectation that because you're a creative, you love what you do, and you're totally happy to do it for free. And
for the exposure.
Like, I mean, I'm sure lawyers like on the side are just like, get asked about random legal questions. But I think it particularly happens in the film industry where people are like, hi, can you help me make a video for this? And you're kind of like, that's not what I do. And that's not what I want to do. And I don't want to do it. But now you make me feel like a dick if I say no. So you just kind of ghost them and never talk to them again. Sorry, several people.
I think it's interesting, just going back to the initial conversation around muffin break and how millennials expect things straight off the bat. I think it's because we are aware that you guys, some people are taking us for granted or exploiting our skill set.
But that's the thing. I don't think people expect things off the bat. I would never expect to do like a production coordinator role on a film because I've never done that work. But at the same time, if someone was like, hey, do you want some experience being a production coordinator? You can production coordinate the whole film for your experience. Absolutely not. Like, there's a massive difference there between those two things.
But I think that's why a lot of people our age are starting their own businesses and freelancing, because they can control what they're doing. They don't have to rely on someone who's got this kind of like traditional way of doing business in their mind where you do a year unpaid. We know that's like bullshit. So that's why.
And also for people who are like, a year unpaid, that's ridiculous. I've literally had a producer once sort of, not in so many words, say that to me, but that I would need to do literally years of unpaid work before I could expect to get my first proper film job.
Which is shit. And I think I know both me and Monique are smart enough to realize that we're not going to do that. And in a world with like so much technology and social media, there are other ways of doing things and getting paid and supporting yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we've seen an increase in people freelancing and starting their own businesses, especially younger people. And whether or not they're successful in that venture, it's because we're rejecting the traditional way of doing business and the way of progressing through a career, because it's not sustainable.
No.
We can't put food on a table. I can't pay my rent unless I'm getting paid for the work that I should be getting paid to do.
And that's another thing, is that sometimes unpaid internships do only allow people of a certain class to progress. I'm lucky enough that when I was in uni, I could happily take a couple of weeks off work to do an unpaid internship.
You were lucky enough to go to uni to study that.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to be able to still be able to pay for my rent, my food, etc., while not working at my job for 3 weeks. And there are a lot of people where that's just not an option. And I know for that particular internship, like I did get a job because of it. And if I had been in financial dire straits and hadn't been able to take that internship, I would not have got the paying job that I have today. And that just locks out a whole bunch of people and is deeply unfair. If that had been a paid internship, someone else might have been able to do it. Someone else who can't just like take a 3-week holiday, you know?
Yes.
So that's why I think paid internship should be a thing. I understand some companies can't do that, and some companies are actually providing training opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise provide. You know, like they're happy for someone to come on board and follow them around. But if they have to pay someone to come on board and follow them around, they're like, probably not going to do that.
Yeah. I bet there's a big difference between like a bigger company providing like training that's unpaid because they know those opportunities don't come around a lot. So they're facilitating growth and they're mentoring an emerging group of smart, intelligent people who can go on and progress in this industry to do really great things. They're fostering that kind of talents. There's a big difference between doing that unpaid and doing like literal people doing actual grunt work that anybody could do just because they don't want to pay someone to do it.
Yeah, if you're doing grunt work that they just don't want to pay someone to do, really think about whether it's worth it. And like the unfortunate truth is sometimes it will be worth it. And sometimes no matter how shit it is, no matter how long you work, maybe you will get a full-time job out of it. And like them's the breaks. And it sucks. And fuck work culture.
On a lighter note, let's segue into a different part of the conversation, opportunities and creating opportunities for yourself through unpaid work. I still believe this kind of like fits under the conversation on the spectrum of the topic. But what scenario is unpaid work beneficial and when should you pursue it?
So, for example, this podcast, neither of us are getting paid. We're still doing it. And I think it's beneficial for both of us, I think in different ways. Like for Steph, she gets to produce a podcast and, she gets to upskill and like learning how the tech works, etc. I don't know what else you get out of this podcast. I don't know what I get out of this podcast now that I think about it, because I'm not upskilling. I'm just sitting here talking. Anyway.
You're networking.
Am I?
Yeah.
But I don't tell people about the podcast. Steph does all the marketing. Anyone who asks me what my podcast is about, I'm like, you wouldn't like it. Don't worry. Anyway. I'm sorry. But no, it's unpaid, but it's giving me a platform to talk about things that I care about. It's giving Steph an opportunity to do whatever she's doing with the podcast. And I do think it's beneficial for me to learn how to speak in podcasts that maybe will one day translate to me speaking like at a panel or something like that, you know? So I think that's beneficial. Something that unpaid work that I don't find beneficial is when I don't always need to get something out of it. I do need to always get something out of it, but sometimes that can be, I really believe in this project and I want you to succeed. And so I'll help you do the budget, even though I'm not going to get credited for it, you know? So that still is beneficial for me. And maybe another benefit is I'm upskilling someone that wouldn't have those skills.
But it's kind of like giving back in a way that somebody had to teach you to do that.
Totally. Giving back is a big one.
You're so I know I'm grateful for even you talking through some things for me, like in terms of producing work and stuff like that. So if I could give that back to somebody else, I would in a heartbeat.
I totally would as well. And like when I share my producing knowledge with you, not that I have that much, let's be honest, that's because you're my friend and I want you to succeed, you know, and that's what I get out of it, seeing my friend succeed.
But I think for me, if I was to do unpaid work, it's either because I need to learn a new skill or it's to network. I was reading something once, I can't remember where it was from, but it stuck with me. It was that you shouldn't ever go into an unpaid position thinking that you should get a job out of it.
I absolutely agree.
It should not be your intention because you're missing out on like a million other opportunities that are around it that can facilitate you moving forward, whether that's learning a new skill or meeting somebody new. You should go into any job not trying to really impress like a boss to get a job out of it, because if you really wanted to be there, you would be trying to learn a new skill because you're doing it unpaid. You should be there for other reasons than money.
Yeah, I think you do have to just like decide that you're going to do something and then work out what you're going to get out of it. And what you're getting out of it shouldn't necessarily be, maybe one day they'll hire me. What you should get out of it might be that they'll know who I am and they'll know that I do good work. And maybe in the future that'll help me, which I think is different than expecting a job.
Yeah, you should just start new relationships with people. It might not be beneficial to you now, but you could be in like a paid job 3 years from now and be like, hey, this was this really good person I met on my unpaid internship who did this really great work. I'm going to like call them up and bring them in and maybe they can help me.
One thing that I would always, well, not always, but something that I would definitely consider doing unpaid is working on short films with my friends. And there's a couple of reasons why I would do that. One, short films often don't have any money. So a lot of people aren't getting paid. You're not the only one. And it's not like you're being singled out not to get paid. It can allow you to network with people that you might not have otherwise met. And it can allow you to get credits. So say if you are the art designer on a film and it's unpaid and then that film goes to festivals, then people will know who you are. You've got a significant credit under your belt. And that can be really beneficial. And you're getting paid further down the line. potentially getting paid further down the line if it turns out well. So that's something I would definitely consider doing unpaid. And I know, Steph, at the moment, you're working on a pilot for a web series and you will not get paid to make this pilot. But further down the line, if it becomes a full web series, you will get paid.
And I mean, for me, I think I'm very lucky in the sense that I do have a full-time job outside of kind of the film industry that I really love and enjoy. And so for me, it's not make or break that I don't get paid for doing this web series, which is great for me. But I also know that other people would love to get paid to be making a web series. So I am very mindful of that. But for me, doing it, it's not to get paid at this point. It's to learn as much as I can, meet as many people as I can, and just try and make something that I'm proud of, that I can. It's kind of like just proving to myself that I can do this work. So if I did want to keep pursuing it, I knew I could, and I have the people around me to help me do that, and the tools to do that, and the knowledge to keep going and to keep pushing and doing better things as I progress through the industry. As a final note for this topic, I want to just touch on, if you're in a position where you can't afford to take time off work to do an unpaid position, what should you do in that scenario? Do you have any ideas, Monique?
If you can't afford to take time off, that's shit. It's a hard position to be in. I know there are a lot of people who do a lot of stuff outside of work. So they work nights so they can work unpaid during the day, or they work unpaid at night so that they can work paid during the day. Maybe you just have to do that. The other thing, I think, if it's a great opportunity for them as well, I think that's the thing, is you're providing value to a company. So, for example, if you meet someone at a networking event and they say, I'd love to have you on my short film, or maybe not a short film, I'd love to have you on my feature film, but I've got no going like positions, but you know, if you want to come on and paid, that'd be fine. Be honest, just say like, look, it's a shit situation. I can't take unpaid time off work. Is there any way you can pay me minimum wage for these 2 weeks? Work with them. Maybe they'll work with you. Probably won't happen, but it's still
if you
something
don't
to
ask the question, then you're not going to receive. I think just having an open conversation with somebody, everybody's human, everyone understands what you're, maybe not your exact scenario, but everyone understands that things are shit. And if you need to be paid to be there.
I'd never really considered that taking an unpaid internship would be a problem for some people, because like at the very start of my uni career, I was like, if I needed to, like say I lost my job tomorrow and I couldn't get another one for 6 months, I would be fine. I would never be homeless out of that situation. And I kind of never, until I grew up and became a proper adult, like I never considered that other people were in that position. And I think sometimes just to make that known is that like other people can have that happen to them, makes it easier for the culture to shift and say, oh, it's not okay to allow that to happen. I feel like I'm explaining this really badly, but I think everyone needs to speak up against unpaid internships where appropriate and say like, I can take time off and do this unpaid, but just so you know, you're shutting out a bunch of really great candidates that should be getting paid for this, but that now can't take this opportunity, you know?
That's it for today's episode. You've been listening to Modern Adults. If you'd like to stay in contact or share your thoughts about the episode, head to our Facebook page, Modern Adults Podcast.
If you like what you hear, please leave a review on iTunes and spread the word. And maybe we can grasp opportunities together.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like saying the word modern adult because I keep wanting to say modern adults.
It is modern adults.
Why are we saying modern adult?
I don't know.
Fuck, we've fucked them all up.
If anyone asks, we can just be like, there was an S there. It's just a hard word to say.
But it's only hard to say when there's no S there.